On June 25, 2009, the world stopped. News alerts flashed across screens. Radio stations cut their music. Crowds gathered outside hospitals and homes. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, was gone. But what led to that moment? What really happened during the final years of the most famous entertainer in human history? This is not a story of rumors, not a story of conspiracy theories, not a story of tabloid headlines. This is the story of a man aging, pressured, exhausted, carrying the weight of a legacy so large that no one person could survive it alone. This is Michael Jackson's final years. What really happened? By the early 2000s, Michael Jackson was no longer the unstoppable force he once was. The 1980s and early 90s had made him untouchable. Thriller, bad, dangerous, record-breaking tours, global hysteria, cultural domination. But fame at that level leaves scars. Michael had spent nearly his entire life performing. He never experienced adulthood without cameras, never walked freely without security, never trusted easily. By the time he entered his 40s, his world had become smaller, quieter, lonelier. Neverland Ranch, once a symbol of escape and imagination, became a place of isolation. Michael wasn't fading creatively, but he was fading physically and emotionally. Michael Jackson lived in pain, real, documented pain. Years of intense dancing had damaged his body. His spine, feet, knees, all affected by decades of physical strain. In 1999, a stage accident severely injured his back. Burn injuries from the 1984 Pepsi commercial had already left long-term effects. Sleep became a problem. Anxiety became constant. Insomnia became unbearable. Doctors prescribed medications, painkillers, anti-anxiety drugs, sleep aids. Over time, Michael became dependent, not recreationally, but medically. Those around him later described a man desperate for rest. Not escape, not euphoria, just sleep. In November 2003, Michael Jackson faced one of the most devastating moments of his life. After decades of being treated as untouchable, the king of pop was suddenly treated like a criminal. That morning, police arrived at Neverland Ranch. Michael Jackson was arrested, fingerprinted, photographed, and charged with multiple felony counts. For the first time, the world saw him not on stage, but in a mugshot. The charges stemmed from allegations made by the family of a teenage boy who had previously spent time at Neverland Ranch. Prosecutors accused Michael Jackson of child molestation, administering an intoxicating substance to a minor, conspiracy, attempted false imprisonment, extortion-related charges involving the child's family. In total, 10 criminal counts were initially filed. The allegations suggested that Michael had attempted to control or influence the family after previous media appearances. Michael completely denied all accusations. He pleaded not guilty to every charge. The arrest itself was deeply traumatic. Michael was allowed to surrender voluntarily, but the image was already done. Cameras captured him exiting the courthouse. Frail, silent, visibly shaken. For a man who had spent his entire life performing for the world, this was humiliation on a global scale. News networks ran the footage non-stop. Tabloids exploded. Public opinion turned overnight. The presumption of innocence disappeared. In January 2005, the trial began in Santa Maria, California. It would last 4 months. Every detail of Michael's life was dragged into the courtroom. His finances, his sleeping habits, his relationships, his mental health. Former employees testified. Friends testified. Family members testified. Neverland Ranch, once a symbol of imagination, was portrayed as something dark and disturbing. Michael attended court nearly every day. He sat quietly, rarely spoke, and often appeared exhausted. Those close to him later said the trial nearly broke him. On June 13, 2005, the jury reached a verdict. Michael Jackson was found not guilty on all counts. Every charge, every allegation, he was acquitted completely. The courtroom erupted in relief. Michael collapsed into his family's arms. Legally, he was cleared. But emotionally, the damage was already done. Although Michael won the case, he lost something far more important: trust. He no longer felt safe in America. He no longer trusted the media. He no longer trusted the people around him. His finances were devastated by legal fees. His reputation forever changed. Even supporters admitted something was different. Michael was quieter, more guarded, more fragile. Shortly after the trial, he left the United States. Not as a fugitive, but as a man trying to escape the shadow of public judgment. This trial wasn't just a legal battle. It was the moment Michael Jackson stopped being a symbol and became a target. Whether people believed him or not, the experience left scars that never healed, and those scars would shape everything that followed. In his final years, after the trial, Michael became a nomad. He lived in Bahrain, Ireland, Germany, Las Vegas, never settling, never feeling safe. Friends described him as gentle but withdrawn. He laughed with his children, but worried constantly about money, reputation, and survival. Despite appearances, Michael Jackson was not financially stable. Years of lawsuits, canceled tours, settlements, and extravagant expenses had left him in serious debt. The irony was cruel. The most successful entertainer in history was running out of money. And then came an offer that promised salvation, and ultimately, disaster. In 2009, Michael announced, "This is it," a massive comeback residency in London. 50 sold-out shows, a return to glory, a chance to reclaim control. Michael didn't want a farewell. He wanted a rebirth. Rehearsal footage shows a man still musically sharp, directing musicians, adjusting choreography, imagining perfection. But physically, something was wrong. He was thin, fragile, often exhausted. Rehearsals went late into the night. Sleep became even harder to find. Pressure mounted. The world expected Thriller Michael. But Michael was human. Desperate for rest, Michael hired a personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray. Dr. Murray agreed to do what many doctors would not. He administered propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic to help Michael sleep. This decision would become fatal. Propofol is not a sleep aid. It suppresses breathing. It requires constant monitoring. Michael trusted his doctor. He wanted sleep. He needed sleep. On the night of June 24, 2009, Michael was given multiple sedatives, followed by propofol. And then, silence. Michael Jackson was found unresponsive in his Los Angeles home. Paramedics tried for over an hour. CPR, defibrillation, transport to the hospital. Nothing worked. At 2:26 p.m., Michael Jackson was pronounced dead. The cause: acute propofol intoxication, combined with other sedatives. It was ruled a homicide not because of intent, but because of gross medical negligence. Dr. Conrad Murray was later convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Michael Jackson was 50 years old. The reaction was immediate and historic. Vigils erupted worldwide. Music charts flooded with his songs. His memorial became one of the most watched broadcasts in history. People cried not just for the artist, but for the boy who never got to grow up. Michael's children stood on stage, and the world finally saw what mattered most to him. Not fame, not records, not applause. Family. So what really happened in Michael Jackson's final years? He wasn't insane. He wasn't careless. He wasn't trying to escape life. He was exhausted, pressured, physically hurting, surrounded by people who depended on him financially and emotionally. Michael Jackson was a perfectionist, trapped in a broken system, a system that celebrates legends but rarely protects humans. His death wasn't inevitable. It was preventable. And that may be the most heartbreaking truth of all. Michael Jackson gave the world magic. But magic came at a cost. In his final years, he wasn't chasing glory. He was chasing peace. And perhaps the greatest lesson of his story is this: even the brightest stars need rest. Even legends need care. And even kings are human. If you found this documentary respectful and informative, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still listens to Michael's music today. And let us know in the comments, which legendary life story should we tell next?